NASA has released the first images taken by the James Webb Space Telescope.
The pictures are unlike anything we've ever seen before.
NASA's newest space observatory allows researchers to see further into the cosmos than ever before.
There are moments in human history when everything we know, everything we believe to be true, shifts beneath our feet. They don't come with explosions or dramatic headlines. Sometimes they come in silence, in a silent patch of space where nothing was ever supposed to happen. It was supposed to be just another scan. Another calibration run in a sector so uneventful, astronomers called it a cosmic desert. Cold, predictable, quiet. But in that quiet, something stirred. The James Webb Space Telescope was never meant to find monsters. It was meant to look back in time, to find the birthplaces of stars, to trace the faint glow of the universe's first light. But as it opened its massive golden eye on that lonely region of space near the Sculptor Galaxy Group, something answered. Not in light, not in movement, but in the aching distortion of reality itself. It didn't flash or scream. It didn't spin or burn. It simply was. The data came in slowly. A shadow, they thought. An instrument fault, perhaps. But the shadow didn't move. It didn't belong. And around it was something even stranger. A ring, like the shimmer of heat on a road, but colder than anything Webb had ever touched. A corona of light that twisted inward, like it was being sucked not into gravity, but into nothing. It wasn't a black hole. That's what makes this terrifying. We understand black holes. We've mapped them, named them, watched stars fall into them like rain into a well. But this thing bent nothing. It pulled at space without pulling at mass. No light, no radiation, no hunger, just presence. And in its presence, the universe seemed confused. When the first full scan completed, scientists didn't speak. They stared. They ran simulations. They failed. Again and again, they failed. This object didn't match anything we'd ever found because it didn't follow the rules. The structure, if you can even call it that, was large, incomprehensibly large. Too big to be a star, too orderly to be a galaxy, too wrong to be a mistake. It didn't spiral or shine. It didn't pulse with heat. It hung there like something left behind. Or worse, something watching. The shape was difficult to define. Webb's infrared sensors traced outlines that didn't stay the same. Some images showed delicate patterns, latticework like a spider's web collapsing in slow motion. Other frames caught angular folds, shapes snapping inward like origami made of shadow. Whatever it wasn't natural. Or if it was, then nature has secrets far beyond anything we've ever imagined. Time-lapse data showed it changing, breathing almost, expanding and contracting in impossible ways, not moving, but shifting dimensions, as if it were struggling to fit into our universe, as if it came from somewhere else, somewhere it still partly belonged. Then came the pulses, tiny nudges, rhythms. Webb's gyroscopes picked them up first, minute oscillations that didn't belong. The telescope itself was being gently rocked by waves in spacetime. They weren't loud, but they were consistent, measured, intentional, and worst of all, they lined up. With every pulse, the object sent a shiver through the very bones of reality. Not just space, not just gravity, but time. There was no heat, no radiation, no flare, just that pulse, like the slow, steady beat of a heart too large for this universe. Some called it a message, others a warning. Mathematicians began breaking down the signals. What they found didn't comfort anyone. The pulses weren't random. They followed patterns, prime numbers, recursive functions, mathematical constructs that don't occur naturally without purpose, without design. That's when everything changed. This wasn't just a thing anymore. It wasn't just an anomaly. It was possibly something made, not by us, not by anything we could comprehend. The idea slithered through the astrophysics community like a whisper in a locked room. We might not be alone, not in the way we'd hoped, not in the way we dreamed as children, looking up at the stars. This wasn't a signal of friendship. It wasn't a probe of curiosity. It was presence, and it had been there for a long, long time. Old data was dragged out of dusty archives, observations from ground telescopes, from Hubble, from forgotten deep-field scans. And in those blurry, low-resolution frames, the outline was there, barely. A faint scar in the sky that no one had noticed. Until now. Until we looked with new eyes. That realization struck something primal. What else have we missed? What else is hiding out there? Just waiting for us to look the right way. And then, the darker questions began. What if it's not passive? What if it knows? The question echoed through the corridors of every observatory, every agency monitoring Webb's transmission feeds. What if it knows? That possibility wasn't written in any of the official releases. It wasn't discussed during interviews or press briefings. But behind closed doors, it was there. In every breath, every pause, every silent glance between researchers too afraid to say it out loud. Because something about the pulses had changed. They weren't just regular anymore. They had grown, more complex, more deliberate. What started as a single repeating rhythm had evolved into a series of sequences, longer, sharper, folding in on themselves with each passing hour. The patterns began to look less like noise and more like thought. Not language exactly, but something that felt like intent, a pressure, a push, and they weren't random. Deep learning models trained to detect symbolic patterns began to find structure in the chaos. Too much structure, too much perfection. Every pulse, every fluctuation followed a code, though not one we could understand. Not yet, but that didn't stop the fear, because whatever it was doing, it had changed its pace right after we noticed it. Almost like a response. Almost like recognition. Across the world, teams began to focus less on what the object was and more on what it might mean. Some proposed it was a construct, a megastructure, maybe not even made of matter, but of space itself, woven into a shape not meant to be touched. Others believed it might be alive, an entity that did not need breath or blood or warmth, something ancient, something that existed before time meant anything at all. But those were just guesses. The one thing no one could explain was its perfection. Everything about the object seemed tuned, fine-tuned, like a machine built not just with knowledge, but with purpose far beyond efficiency. There was no entropy, no excess, no decay. In all the data Webb had sent back, there wasn't a single sign of randomness, not a flicker. And that kind of precision doesn't occur in nature. Nature is messy. Explosions, storms, chaos. Even the most stable stars shake. But this, it did not. It was still, eternal, watching. Some called it a lens, others a lock, a prison, maybe even a key. But there was something else, too. An idea whispered at the edges of midnight conversations and unrecorded meetings. What if this thing is holding something in? The theory wasn't new, but the more they studied it, the harder it became to dismiss. The structure wasn't moving, not drifting like cosmic debris, not spinning or migrating. It was pinned in one of the quietest regions of the observable universe, far from stars, radiation, gravitational noise, suspiciously far, almost as if it had been placed there, deliberately. And that idea opened a door to even darker thoughts. Because if something placed it there, something capable of building such a perfect, silent, eternal structure, then it means the universe has more than just life. It has rules we've never learned. It has players we've never met. And maybe enemies we've never imagined. Governments were already taking notice. Agencies with no interest in astronomy were suddenly curious. Defense branches, intelligence departments, quiet advisors from old programs no one talked about anymore. This wasn't just science now. It was something else. The term sentinel began appearing in internal memos. Not publicly, but it was there. A cosmic sentinel, a watcher, not transmitting, but receiving, not announcing itself, but waiting. Waiting for what? That's the question that no one could answer, and that everyone feared to ask. And then came the second anomaly. Thousands of light years from the original object, another ripple was detected. Not identical, but eerily familiar. A distortion, a pulse, a void that echoed the same impossible physics. It wasn't a twin, but it was part of something, a pattern, a system, perhaps even a network. The meta-web theory, as it became known, spread quickly. The idea that these structures, these impossibilities, were connected, spread across the stars like pins on a map. Not physical connections, something deeper, something informational, a cosmic framework invisible until now, revealed only by the most delicate fingerprints of warped space and stolen time. If true, it meant we weren't seeing the first sign of something. We were just now learning how to look. And maybe, just maybe, it had been looking back the whole time. Webb's instruments continued to record, to listen, but the silence was deafening. No message, no signal. Just that perfect, repeating rhythm. That throb of impossible structure in the cold. Was it a heart, a brain, a cage, or a monument to something long dead, drifting through the ruins of forgotten dimensions? No one knew. But whatever it was, it had never been meant to be seen by us. And now that we had seen it, the question was no longer whether we were alone. The question now was, who, if anyone, would answer first? In the beginning, we thought the universe was empty, silent, just stars and dust and gravity pulling everything apart. But now, as Webb stares into the void and finds something staring back, we're beginning to realize we were never truly alone. Not in the way we imagined, with signals and spaceships and other civilizations waiting to wave from across the stars, but alone in our understanding, in our innocence, because this object, this terrifying monument in the sky, has broken the story we've been telling ourselves for thousands of years. It doesn't matter if it's alive or dead, made or grown, ancient or new. What matters is what it means. It means the universe is not what we thought. It never was. Physicists now say the object may not even exist entirely in our reality, that it slips between dimensions, a crack in the wall of what we call space, a tear, a fold, a knot so tight it warps not just matter, but the very rules that shape existence. And yet somehow it's stable, it's holding, like a nail driven into the skin of the cosmos, keeping something in place or keeping something out. And the pulses? They're changing again. Webb's team has detected a new layer, buried deep beneath the previous signals. Not louder, just sharper, like a whisper inside a whisper, a mathematical shift, a code wrapped in a pattern that doesn't repeat. Something only visible once we started mapping the fluctuations three-dimensionally. The signal isn't just rhythm, it's a structure, but it's not a message, not yet. There's no language, no images, no instruction, just motion, a presence flexing against the edge of our comprehension as if testing the limits of our understanding. Or waiting for us to grow into them. And that's what terrifies the researchers the most. Because what if this thing has always been here? What if it's part of the architecture of the universe itself? An instrument placed not to communicate, but to judge. Some philosophers have already started calling it the threshold, the point in cosmic evolution where a civilization becomes visible, not just to itself, but to the structures embedded in the dark. A cosmic tripwire. Cross it, and the watchers take notice. Or worse, awaken. There's no way to know what happens next. That's the hardest part. We don't know if we've opened a door, or if something has opened it for us. And across all this speculation, one fact remains. The object has not moved. It remains frozen in that quiet corner of space, untouched by time or force. But now it pulses with deeper complexity, faster, denser, like the beat of something stirring in its sleep. And we're listening. Across the world, instruments recalibrate, telescopes pivot, supercomputers run through the night trying to unravel math that feels like it wasn't meant for human minds. And yet, we can't stop. We were never built to look away. Because for all our fear, all our dread, there's something else rising too. Wonder. Somewhere, beyond logic and fear, is the part of us that has always looked up, that stood under the stars and dreamed, that wrote stories of gods and monsters and worlds beyond imagining. Not because we knew what was out there, but because we hoped there was something more. And now, Maybe we found it. Not a friend, not a threat, just the unknown. Real at last. It changes everything. And it changes nothing. We still go to work. We still drink coffee and walk our dogs and argue over small things. But somewhere behind it all, the sky feels different now. Like something vast and ancient is watching. Not with malice, not with love, just with attention. That in itself is enough to shake a species to its core. And maybe that's what this is really about. Maybe this object, this anomaly, this terrifying stillness in the void, wasn't meant to destroy us or even contact us. Maybe it's a mirror, held up to our greatest question. Are we alone? And in that silence, in those pulses that stretch across space and time, and fear and beauty, maybe the answer is this. No, we never were. We were just too young to know how to see, and now we've seen. Whatever comes next, whatever unfolds in the shadow of this discovery, one thing is certain. The stars are no longer silent, and the universe has secrets left to tell.